Hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an anime story podcast. I'm the Big Bad Moon. Right over here on the right is Howlin 3D, and just below me is Bad Strategy. We are going to be your hosts. Just below me. Hey, how you guys doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. We're good.
And quick.
Look, I'm trying to find the ending song.
That's fair. We were just talking about the music. Helen, I know you're not feeling super well today. So I will.
Good.
Yeah, there you go. I will. Not make fun of you too much. Yes. Okay. Today, hi. So, hey guys. Today we're gonna be doing talking about Spice and Wolf. The show, we just watched one season of the show. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it out to you guys. What were your thoughts, general thoughts on Spice and Wolf?
It is.
Go ahead.
It is mellow.
It is mellow.
It's pretty mellow.
Very mellow.
It starts very mellow.
It's a slice of life. I didn't know what genre it was.
That's fair. It is totally
I like
slice of
the
life.
undercurrent. It has a great undercurrent to it.
We super just jumped right into it, by the way. That was great.
Can you elaborate on the undercurrent?
Well, like from the very first episode, they are prepping you for the money laundering. And Sam and I noticed the little things that they do in the first episode to set you up for the rest of the show. So there's a lot of forethought put into it.
Was this based on a novel, perchance?
I don't know. That's a Noah question.
It's a wiki question.
I think it's a Google
For
question.
A bad question.
That's 2008 and
my throat.
and light novel has 4 volumes and was 2016.
Called it. 2016. When did this come out?
This was 2008.
Damn.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it almost feels like it could have been based on a novel, because of the way that it was. It's because of the pacing of the show, right? It's a little bit slower.
Ooh, the manga was 2007, so the manga was a
Okay.
year before the anime.
The show. Yeah.
And
That
the light
makes sense.
novel was 2006. There we go.
The light novel was 2006.
Light novel 1 year, the next year manga, the next year series.
It was totally a book. Got it.
I mean, it depends on how you define light novels, because light novels are basically, from my experience,
Yeah.
a light novel is the script for a manga with some added stuff.
Interesting.
With like a little bit more, like it's the script for the manga before you trim out bits, before you trim the story down and make it into a manga.
Interesting. I actually have never heard of what a light novel actually is. I don't think I've ever read a light novel.
Helen, have you read many light novels or
Okay.
mangas?
I
Thoughts?
have.
Yeah.
I haven't read this one, but I have read tons of mangas. Not recently. I've been really
Light novels?
lazy.
No.
I've never read light novels. No.
Okay, I was interested. I wanted to ask you because
So just the difference. I don't
yeah,
know.
in the ReZero light novel,
Oh, okay.
all the that's the only light novel I've actually read. I've glanced at other ones, but I've not gone into them. All the dialogue is formatted very very much in a script style of character name, colon, lines of dialogue. And so I was
I
interested.
like the sound of that.
Yeah, I was interested if that was something that recurred in other light novels, or if that was just in the ReZero
I
one.
don't know.
Recurred in other light novels.
It's not
or if that...
something I have knowledge on.
Well, so as far as light novels and all that goes, what did you think of the actual anime?
Okay, so I think her name is Brianna. I can't remember her last name. She's the one who plays Holo. And I
The Wise
loved
Wolf.
the way she carved out the character. Just taking her time with the lines, I thought was really an interesting play of like this hoity-toityness about her.
Mm-hmm,
And I felt like she went into a lot of background work to get that the way she wanted it.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the voice acting in this for their dub. I don't watch a lot of dubs, as you know, and so watching this as a dub, I was actually very excited. There weren't any voices that were jolting or pissed me off, or you know what I mean.
Okay.
Holo
ahead.
the Wise Wolf is definitely one of the more memorable characters in anime.
Okay. Before we go any further, I suppose I should talk about what Spice and Wolf is. So
Yes.
it's an anime, and it's about the main character is a merchant, and so the merchant goes back to his hometown, and at his hometown there's a myth about the harvest of wheat every year, and how there's a magic wolf deity
God.
that helps the harvest be good every year. And on his way out of town, he ends up running into the magical wolf deity, whose name is Holo. She then proceeds to join his party, and they go to other places, and he is a trader, or a peddler, I believe is what he was called it. And she needs to go north, because she wants to go back to her homeland. But she
Objective
can't.
is to go home.
Yeah, she can't travel.
Is to own a shop.
Yeah.
His eventual need or want is to own that shop.
Mm-hmm. And Holo can't be too far away from wheat, and because he was taking wheat, he takes some wheat along, and she can stay there because she's close to the wheat. And she goes up north with him. They stop in towns and do have adventures along the way.
It is peculiar that a wolf lives in wheat, but I won't
That is,
question it.
it's a wolf god, you know.
I'm interested into watching the second season
Oh.
because, like, the interesting thing to me is the undercurrent of the money and the undercurrent of the church and their power. And I felt like it wasn't a slice of life, because slice of life, I feel like, feels more like day-to-day do blah.
Mhm.
I felt there was a lot more pull underneath. But
Mhm.
on the surface, it does feel very slice of life. But then underneath, you've got this, like, the push and pull of what is actually happening in this country, and, like, if Holo gets caught by the church, and just all of these, like, kind of lingering questions.
Interesting. So that's interesting. I would say that most certainly the like conspiratorial stuff and the large characters and the church and all that, even though we didn't actually in the first season anyway get really deep into the church stuff,
Yeah.
it was there. And this whole is there really a plot to, I mean, I guess the church that, like, throughout the story, throughout the first season of the show, there's a fear that people will turn the wolf will turn Holo into the church, and the church will, I don't know, do whatever they do with her, probably
Killer.
string her up, burn her at the stake, something like that. That never materializes because the church isn't actually looking for her, but there's a small group of people from the merchant's hometown that do want to grab her. That is kind of a thing that's over in the first half of the season.
I would like to ask this. So that's the first arc, right? So
Right.
it's they meet and we establish the setting, and then we enter the first story arc. Then there's a break. Then there's the second story arc. Hallen, I would like to ask you, because I was a little bit confused. What is there's the plot to turn Holo in to the church,
Yes.
and it seems like the goal of the plot is to undermine the company that Kraft Lawrence is working with
Yes.
for the money. How does turning in Holo undermine that company, though? Because it seemed to me that Holo wasn't with the company. Holo was with Kraft Lawrence. So I'm not sure how it works as blackmailing the company.
I feel
don't-
like it wasn't more blackmailing the company as blackmailing him.
So it was
'Cause if they got
specifically.
him to if they got him to back off, then they could get away with what they were doing. So they were holding on to Holo, saying, "Hey, if you come out with this information, we're gonna kill her," even though they were gonna kill her anyway.
Mhm.
And
But
he
wasn't
had
it-
the
wasn't-
information, and he was safe.
Wasn't it out of Kraft Lawrence's hands by that point though, because he'd already given the information to the company? Because they
He-
mentioned that they mentioned
He
that there's no
gave
point
it
in
to the
blackmailing him.
one guy.
Yeah.
They do say that, but they were trying to work the deal with the church. And so in
Mhm.
order to work the deal with the church, everybody had to be on the same page. And so they knew Kraft Lawrence would have enough influence to be able to do that.
Okay, so they were. Okay, that's fair. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and so I would actually say that this is kind of one of the things that made me think that it was perhaps a novel before. Was the kind of plot writing that's happening. It's kind of long-term, kind of slow-paced stuff that I feel like in an anime context, or in maybe just a film context, feels kind of slow and feels kind of, it feels like there's something big below the surface, in a way that
Yeah.
if it had been translated just from a comic, I don't know if it would have the same thing going on.
I would agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, I also think I'm wording that very, very poorly. But yeah, it has this kind of big implication of other stuff going on, and we never really touch on it though. Only very slightly. What did you think of the?
What-
Or go ahead.
What do you guys think the messaging was? What
Church is evil.
definitely have.
The church are
I've been
bad
reading
guys.
a lot of manga, so I've seen that
Uh-huh.
many times lately.
They were overpowered.
Super OP.
Yeah, there's
Shepherds
definitely this,
shepherds
I
are
like
also
the message
really OP.
in one of the episodes where, he makes a deal and goes over the top, and then it bites him in the ass. Like, don't get greedy.
Well, and that
Yeah,
was interesting.
diversity of goods. He should have gotten 3 or 4 products, but
That was interesting because I feel like that was a thing where it was presented like the guy that they were talking to was trying to screw him over.
yeah, no. Afterwards,
Yeah.
he's like, "You tricked me," even though,
No,
no, Mr. Lawrence, you did this.
you did this to
You're the
yourself.
one
You did
You-
this
you're
to
the one that
yourself.
decided
That
on
was a good
arms.
message.
Yeah.
There's definitely a what is it? The church versus superstition versus old beliefs.
Yeah, no, the new beliefs
Pagan
versus old beliefs.
New
yeah.
beliefs versus
Yeah.
old beliefs.
No, totally.
And how they kept trying to kill the little church shepherd because they thought she was pagan because she kept surviving.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the messaging with that is. What the
Well, because that's interesting. Because did they ever really determine why she survived when they sent her into horrible, dangerous places?
No,
She
she's
doesn't
just
do
really good at
anything in
stuff.
particular. She's just
She's just like a badass.
Yeah, I think
she
that was the
doesn't. She
reason.
just
That's
uses
fair.
her bell, rounds him up. I mean,
Yeah.
if Holo hadn't have been there for the last one, she probably would have died.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, a little bit. Not sure about the messaging in there.
Not to judge. I mean, it was very judgy. People were very judgy.
That's true.
Yeah, it was very,
Especially when they were the guy. He went up and he needed to borrow money, and the guy was like, "I would give you money, but you keep walking around with a woman. How can you afford that?"
No, what
does
was
that
with
mean?
I didn't understand that at
Ex-
all.
Now,
Was
did
that-
you guys watch it on Funimation or?
We absolutely watched it on a legitimate website like Funimation.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, on Funimation they have the uncut version, and the uncut version was really good, but they had the regular version. I ended up watching the uncut.
That's interesting. I wonder which version we watched. What does the uncut version have?
It's just like added things that made it pop more, like things I didn't always get in the first show. Like when I first watched it, I felt like there was more banter between the characters, and the story felt more connected. It didn't feel as disconnected.
Interesting.
So with this does not have the uncut version.
We probably did not watch the uncut version. I would imagine.
There are just like extra scenes in each one that kind of go into more detail about what's happening, which may be why I feel like there's a bigger undercurrent.
No, that's totally fair.
I'm gonna voice my 2 criticisms. I have 2 criticisms of the show. First criticism: they put religious talk into way too many characters' dialogue.
Agree with that.
And I don't think that whatever messaging they have with religion is important enough to the story to justify that, because I think the religious talk and every merchant they go to is like, no, by the Lord of God and holy praise. I think it's grating. It's like when someone writes and tries to write in Old English.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, it's hard to listen to Old English when like Shakespeare is doing it, and Shakespeare actually speaks in Old English, so he can do it well, and he's a good writer. But like, it just like comes off as really grating when it happens a lot. And there needs to be a strong intent behind it, and I don't think they had enough.
To me, the intent was that the church had that much of a hold over all of these cities. Like, they even go and talk about how they're going to take over the original city they start in because of their pagan beliefs.
Yeah, but the messaging with the church is just not. It's not. I guess it's. I have a hard time pinning down what the messaging is supposed to be. There's this like conflict between new beliefs and old beliefs, but it doesn't seem.
I feel like they're overpowered. I feel like they're so overpowered that they have this much control, so they have to say it all the time so that the church isn't listening. That's what I got from it.
That's fair. I just don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's important enough to the story. Maybe they don't delve deeply enough into that element for me to feel like it's justified, especially because it is like it keeps happening. It ends up being grating when that happens too much, I feel like.
That's fair. I feel like that. Okay, yeah. Anyway, you can go on with your second.
I've already forgotten. I'll remember soon.
Well, okay. So this is something that kind of goes into probably my one major criticism of the show, and that's that I don't really feel like the main the main motivations, the main plots of the show felt it was not very pressing. Did I say that on my lips?
No, I was talking to my husband. My lips are dry, and I don't want to peel them.
So I feel like their goal is to go north to Holo's home, and then of course along the way we learn that the peddler guy wants to own a shop, and that might be possible if he makes enough money, and so that becomes kind of a thing that if he gets enough money he can open a shop. But they're going to go north, and both of those things are things that are totally not pressing, and the ways to achieve those goals is to just like slowly travel north.
It's the overarching like story is very detached from what's actually happening, and we don't have any way to measure it.
It's very passive.
No, yeah, I agree. It was hard to know what Holo's actual want was, because she says she wants to go north,
right?
But I think she wants to be with Kraft Lawrence. That's what it feels like.
Well, it certainly. I think that also that is also something that develops more and more over the course of the story. I think like it's more that like she wants to go because she's like lonely and sad, and that like loneliness helps to fuel her desire to be with Kraft Lawrence, and she bonds with him over time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so this is and this is the thing that so the way that plot's constructed. So there's never any point. I mean, obviously, you can say that the further along they get, the closer they get to achieving the objective of going north to Holo's home. But there's really never any way to measure that. Like there's never anything that makes us feel like we're really any closer than it. Other than the passage of time. Well, clearly they must be closer because time has passed. And so what ends up happening for me there is, as the show goes on, it just feels like they're just going. If there were some like really pronounced way to make it really obvious that they're getting there, they're almost there, 2 more towns, 1 more town, then suddenly the amount of time, that they have to spend together is noticeably, vanishing. And if Holo's realizing she wants to stay with him, that's going to raise the tension. And you're like, is she going to stay or is she going to go north?
It definitely does feel like that's an important element of the story, is her like desires shifting over time towards like caring more and more about Kraft Lawrence.
Yeah,
that seems like an obvious conflict for them to reach.
Right, and I feel like, and I don't know, maybe that happens more in the second season, but that's probably the biggest thing. Is I feel like because of the nature of what they want, those are very passive things. They're going north, and he wants a shop, and I don't even know if I would say that's his primary motivation.
Yeah, it's sort of like
it's an important motivation for him, but there's the whole thing with the one girl back at the town and how he's begins to feel about Holo and
yeah, it seems like that's the retirement plan,
right?
For
no,
Mark
totally.
Prince,
And I can open a shop, right? So it all feels it does not in any way feel pressing, I think.
Yeah.
And the thing that
yeah. It's very like episodic. I definitely think during the initial, there's the meet and startup area that's pretty light, and they take a break at the end of the first arc and before the start of the second arc, and during both of those time periods, it feels very mellow, like not much is going on.
Mm-hmm. And the little mini stories, because that's really what the show seems to focus on, are all the little mini stories. And then in there are a couple of bigger, like, grander conspiracy things.
I wonder if Chloe's going to come back in the second season. I'm curious.
If they're moving farther and farther... So this is something I've seen in a number of narratives, and it always frustrates me. If they're moving farther and farther north, they can't bring Chloe back. Because if they bring Chloe back, it's like, how'd she get ahead of him?
Unless she's comes up from behind riding a horse really fast.
Tailing them.
Yeah, I mean that's possible.
Or maybe it's a portal,
It's interesting though, because the nature of the narrative is that like they're traveling farther and farther in one direction, and they're not like diverting that much. So the characters they meet are all gonna pass away and like be behind them. No one can really go ahead of them unless the person's like riding hard and like going by themselves, and they're taking detours.
A lot of time in each city. I mean, if she doesn't take her time in each city, she could get ahead of them.
That's her. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But
I'm just curious. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It's an interesting way. The way it's structured is interesting. It's fun. I like the characters. And there's an interesting question. I think it's for me. It's a little bit slow, and I wish there was more going on that was directly relevant to the characters at the moment. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think who was this? Who would like this show? I wonder. Who would you pitch it to?
Very easygoing. I would definitely pitch it to somebody who wouldn't mind having it on, especially like in the background. I don't feel like you necessarily need to catch every little bit.
Oh yeah,
totally.
I would. Yeah, I think if you got the new Mountain Blade and you're like, I'm gonna trade. I'm just gonna
trade.
Go
throw
around.
it on the side monitor.
Yeah, side monitor. It's there.
Yeah.
No, that's totally true. It is a super mellow. It's a super mellow show, and it's definitely the kind of thing it wouldn't really matter if you missed this line or that line. The major plot
I thought
points.
the music was really on point.
Yeah,
like,
they have.
When
They
Yeah.
have
It was
like
intense.
3 or 4 standout songs that it establishes what they're doing with the scene
Mhm.
very clearly.
Yes.
Like, this is a playful moment, playful song.
Right. And it definitely changes your focus onto what you should be focusing on, which I think music plays an amazing role in who you're focusing on, really, because if they played harsh music, maybe you'd focus on Kraft Lawrence more, or playful music, maybe you'd focus on Holo more. Like,
Right.
I did a huge study on this, and I thought it was really fascinating how that works.
Right. No,
And
totally.
how it can change the dynamic so,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
so drastically.
No, totally. Yeah, interesting. No, that's fascinating. Yeah, no, I thought the music was pretty good.
I wanted to ask, Helen, what is your biggest criticism of the show?
My biggest criticism, I would agree, was slow paced.
mhm.
But at the same time, I don't know if it was slow paced because the voice actors took their time, or if it was because I don't know. Like, it did feel slow
Yeah,
at times.
So
I feel like it's a scene structuring, but that's just me.
Like, it was like, okay, like,
I
okay,
think
we
this
get
is
he's going here and there and whatnot. He's begging everybody. But, like, there was a wording that I kept thinking of, like, oh, because he was like, no, we'll just try the next place. We'll just try the next place. And
Mhm.
it was almost like he should have just shook his head no.
Right.
And then that would
Mhm.
explain the whole day. And that would have
Mhm.
cut a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But what would they fill it with? So, that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, I think like defining what causes the pacing to be fast or slow can be hard to pin down sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, for sure.
'Cause there can be so many causes for that sort of analysis. My second criticism. I have 2 criticisms. Second one. It's the same criticism I have with like most isekai actually, is that I am not fully convinced of the like authenticity of the world. However, it's different reasoning than it would normally be with an isekai story. So normally with isekai I'm like the world feels too gamey, so it doesn't feel authentic. Whereas with this story they very intentionally like have lots of moments where the protagonist, Kraft Lawrence, is explaining how things work in the universe.
Mhm.
Except I'm
Yeah.
not like it's I like the thing that makes it feel inauthentic to me is I like nitpick the explanations.
Mm.
Like there's the character who's like, I want to be a tailor, but I have to join the tailors guild. I'm like,
Right.
it's medieval society. Surely things aren't that well regulated. Like, surely you can be a tailor without joining the guild.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that totally. That's such a like trope.
But
Fantasy
is it a
world.
risk?
Say what?
Like, how big of a risk is it to start your own tailor thing without having the
mean,
guild to back you up?
Well, I mean,
I don't know, they never explain it, but it feels like overregulated, and there are a number of nitpicky things I have. One thing that I like that they do is the currency isn't like 100 coppers for a silver, 100 small silvers for a
Yeah.
large silver. It's like 16 of these for one of these or something like that, and that feels much more authentic.
I like how he explains what's fake and what's not, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, they
Mhm.
go into the trade stuff quite a bit, which was interesting. Came across a little bit too much exposition at some points, but that's I think
Yeah.
we were
Well,
taught.
I mean, they conveyed it
Yeah.
all through like the protagonist monologuing.
Yeah.
So it's like
well, and then
it's inevitable that like
Mhm.
because that's very much the tell don't show approach.
yeah. And then this is a thing that happened several times with this. This is also a thing that happens all the time in anime, and I think we had spoken about this before. But he'll be like explaining the thing, and then it'll poop over to like a visual aid and be like 36 coins equals 1 silver coin, and it'll be like images of 36 coins and then
No,
silver.
yeah, it's funny because it's like
"Ah, good, thank you.
it's like tell don't show, but let's put a diagram up.
Let's
at
put
the
a
same
diagram.
time. So it's like
Let's yeah,
Well, and
in case they didn't
so
get it.
that's a very narrow rope to walk on.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. So you're walking on this rope, and you don't want to over-explain, but you also don't want to over-show, because then the audience feels like, okay, we get it, whatever, what's the point of this? So it kind of dumbs down your audience. So you have to be really careful not to do that in a show.
It's also, it's a thing where you also, and maybe it's different in the versions that the extended version or in the light novel or in the comic or whatever, but certain things that don't really need any explanation are things like, honestly, I felt like I didn't really need to know how many silver coins would equal the value of a gold coin. I don't think there was any point in the story where I was like, oh, it's good that I know that conversion, because this has helped me out for the story.
I didn't feel like it helped me.
It was just
out
like, okay, cool.
Because we got into silver, and then all of a sudden we got into gold, and it was like, okay.
Gold coins are worth more than silver coins?
That's all, like...
I feel like that's all we need. And so that, like, not necessarily... And maybe it's important again. Maybe the comic has something, or maybe they're trying to help along the coin plot where they're trying to devalue things or something like that.
I like that you said that, because like there's a show that I'm watching currently on Crunchy that just came out, and it's based off of a game on your phone. And so I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah, that sounds...
But like, my husband played the game on his phone, and so he's like, oh, cool, yeah. And I'm like... So I feel like sometimes when they're converted, we miss out on things that they think should be important.
Yeah, that's fair.
That don't feel like it feels a little lost.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's
played
very
the game
much...
or read the novel, or...
I think, well, oftentimes the case, I think, is that the issue is that it is something that is not meant to stand on its own.
Right.
So if you watch it on its own, then it just like doesn't hold up as a narrative, because you're expected to have all these all this information ahead of time. It's like a lot of the Ghost in the Shell movie, the live action Ghost in the Shell movie. That is a movie that is meant to appeal to people who don't remember the original series, but know a bunch of sporadic bits of information about it.
Right, totally.
That is who it best appeals to, because then you're like, oh, they're called the Major. Cool. They're Cyber Eyes. I remember Cyber Eyes. I think I saw those ones. They're a few iconic moments that maybe you heard of or saw clips of, or maybe your memory's foggy enough of the show that you can't remember.
Yeah.
And so it is very much something that it doesn't stand well on its own. It doesn't stand well yeah, it needs that extra information. And I think
no, that's fair. And I think did you wrap up that thought?
Yeah, it's just with the Ghost in the Shell, it's specifically I think done the way it is because it's trying to get people who know the pop culture things.
Right.
So it's a wide variety of people have access to the information.
That's fair. And so the way that I would describe it is, or that the problem, from the perspective that I'm looking at it, is there might be interesting lore stuff, about why this is this way and what is the exchange rate of this and this, but it's it's the difference between saying that, oh yeah, kryptonite hurts Superman, and being so the beta waves that emit from the kryptonite contact the whatever things, that the orange sunlight, and they do this, and that's how they weaken Superman. It's so kryptonite weakens him. Just full stop.
I think
got it.
I think there's also another element in here that is you can share more crunchy math and numbers and stuff on the universe that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
The more the investment from the audience. If the
that's
audience
fair.
If you're just opening up, it's scene 1 of the show, you can't really show any of that, because if you do, the audience is nothing's happened, I don't have any investment, I don't care. But if the audience has watched 5 seasons, you can be let's have 2 episodes of nothing but hard math on the demographics in this world.
Right.
And the audience will be like, I want it. I love it.
I
It's
love
like
this. This is like the
more.
best. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I would say as a kind of fun thing when there is investment, that's a thing you can do, and that's a Star Trek thing, and but generally speaking, just from the perspective of storytelling, that's a situation where generally like less is more, and then once if you're a couple seasons down the line, and you really want to explain the finer details of some certain thing, and people are going to get super into it. That's fair.
Understand the magic in Little Witch Academia, and that ticked me off to no end.
That you understood the magic?
No, I didn't.
That you didn't? Mm-hmm.
But he's like, okay, great, there's the stone and it works. And if they take away the stone, magic doesn't work anymore. I'm like, I want more.
It's wibbly wobbly,
Yeah.
this timey-wimey sort
I
of.
don't believe that's always true, because
That's true.
that one I wanted more, because I was like, oh, I'm just supposed to go with what you said.
Well, it's also, I think in Little Witch
okay.
Academia, it's especially prevalent that, it's especially pressing because the magic is so essential to
Mm-hmm.
the conflict of the story, because they solve everything with magic. So if you don't understand the
Yeah.
magic, you don't understand the mechanism through which they solve conflict.
Totally.
This is why,
Mhm.
this is a praise I've heard given to My Hero Academia, is because you understand how the powers work. When the heroes find creative ways to use their powers to solve the
Yeah.
problem, you're like, oh my god, that's so brilliant.
Right.
Because they used the thing to do the thing, and then it wasn't.
Yeah. No, totally.
So it's like
It's not-
you can follow along with what's
Yeah.
happening.
And I think this kind of in the end kind of boils down to soft versus hard magic systems. Tell me the specific rules that Gandalf plays by, when he does magic. And
I would also like to complain. So, when you're watching an anime and you're like, oh my god, there's a cool fight, and then the characters, they start hitting each other, and immediately you realize the fight isn't interesting because one character smashes the other with a sword, and that character flies through 5 walls, and then they get up and they're unscratched, and you're like, oh my god. I can't tell if any progress was gained, as opposed to the fight where one character lops the other's arm off and the person screams, and then they stab them, and then that guy falls over, and it's if you can't see an effect, if you don't know how the mechanism of fighting is working, then it's hard to be excited at any action.
Which I say they did that knife scene with Lawrence getting stabbed in the arm well. Because
Right,
I
'cause,
was
yeah.
surprised. I was like, oh shit.
How much less exciting would that have been if someone had punched him, he went through 3 walls, got up with no visible injuries, and
Yeah.
was like, oh, I'm injured now.
mm-hmm.
Let me continue to walk normally.
Well, I like how he walked and he passed out. They gave it so much depth in that scene.
I love it when that happens. It gives there's so much more weight, and you don't. The last thing you want in a narrative is to have the threatening tools like a sword feel like they don't do anything. Like you hit someone and there's no effect. It's because it's so much more intense and exciting in a fight when one person cuts the other, and 5 minutes later in the show the characters still got the cut there. They didn't stop drawing it because they were like, look, it's a lot of effort, let's just go with the default character.
Oh, and what about when Holo had to admit she bowed down to the other wolf, even though it was considered a youngling to her for after this? Sorry, I was reading what my husband said.
Did she bow down to him?
It was off screen.
Admits she does,
she
yeah.
She's like, I negotiated even though he's stupid and dumb and young, and I am better than him and should have eaten him. That's I'm
Well,
paraphrasing.
no, I don't know if the uncut shows it, but he's like, so you bowed down to him, or the other wolf, and she's like, yeah, whatever, and keeps going. But she actually does say that in the uncut version.
Yeah, she definitely has an angry sort of ramble for a moment, being like, I did this and I did this and I wanted to just beat him up.
Sam said she went all sunder.
Is it? Can I ask who Best Girl is?
Oh, that's a good question. Go ahead and ask.
Who's Best Girl?
Helen, what do you think? Who's Best Girl?
Holo. I love the way she did her work on voiceover. I love
I
the
don't
way
know
it
if
played out.
Holo's eligible to be Best Girl.
Oh, because we pick men.
No.
By
What?
the way, Twig Bug, thank you for the compliment on my hair.
Oh. That Twig Bug's a sweetheart, isn't she?
Oh, Troa says Best Girl is Holo's Fang, or the sheepdog.
Oh,
Sheepdog is
I was
my
actually
vote.
thinking about the sheep, but
The sheep.
Sheep or Best Girl?
the sheep. You know, the sheepdog though, that's pretty good. Sheepdog. It's pretty thin because you were not a very present force in the.
Yeah, it's kind of a side
show,
character, you know. Who's waifu? Like, who you getting with? Who you
Honestly,
like?
the peddler, Lawrence, like, what a like. Okay, so he makes bad decisions every once in a while, but like, super responsible, like super understanding, like doesn't ever get
Even the guy at
mad.
the guild wants him to get married.
Yeah, totally. Like, just he's a sweet guy. You know, like you could push him around though. He's maybe a little bit susceptible to somebody pushing him around a little bit, but
That's
overall,
what's right. Or he tries to.
I can agree with this. I can agree with all of this.
But yeah, so that's I feel like any closing thoughts on Spice and Wolf, which was did they say the title? Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Spice and Wolf.
Oh,
Next
they
time.
No, they
Spice.
said.
Oh, the episode names are terrible.
Oh, that's true. The episode names are terrible. They're really not
They
descriptive.
love them.
They're awful.
but bad. I think of the episode where Holo is leaving, just after they get captured and she escapes, and they say the name of the show, where they're like, she's leaving.
Yeah, they have
Spice and Wolf.
If each of the voice actors say it.
God.
Did ours go Spice and Wolf? I don't think ours did that.
Yeah, so it may have been specifically because it's like an end of the episode, like
Narrative.
Our-
telling you
Ours
what
gave
the next
name
episode
next
is.
episode, yeah.
Yes, the next episode. Wolf
then-
and something.
Yeah.
Wolf and something.
And it had both voice actors
Yeah,
say
yeah.
it? Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
thing.
okay. Then yes, ours did do that.
So closing thoughts on Spice and Wolf.
Don't marry
I
a
like
peddler
it, it's fun.
because they have to travel for work.
Don't
I
marry
don't
a
think
peddler.
it's like exciting. I think it's fun though. Like even if you have it on in the background.
I agree. It's definitely definitely they have some like fun banter. I think the fun banter
Yeah.
between Holo and Lawrence is
Mhm.
probably the most important part of the show.
That
I agree.
I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
that's pretty much the thing that they're banking on for this show is that, hey, let's have these two characters, sitting in a bar and talking about the wild antics they've gotten into.
About pickled fruits in sugar.
Oh my god, how he explains the pickled thing. I've done that before with ginger. Oh, it's so good.
So wait,
I was like, my mouth was watering.
So you pickle in vinegar. So
No, you pickle in honey.
you pickle in
how do you
honey.
pickle something in honey?
So honey is a preservative. So you can actually put things in honey and they will preserve for longer. That's true.
Well, that's not
I've done
pickling,
this with
though.
ginger.
If
but
you could
they
do the same
call
thing
it-
with salt or sugar,
Well, in the show they call it pickling.
that's fair.
So it's like
I don't think
I
that's
don't know
pickling.
if it's true.
I was thinking this if it was like if the term was maybe not
Maybe they.
correct.
Didn't-
If pickling
yeah.
might be a different thing. I'm not sure. I have not made like jams and honeyed stuff before.
Pickle apples honey. It is pickling.
Is it
They call it pickling.
With
and
honey?
Yeah.
All the honey pickled apples from Spice and Wolf. That's the top result.
I'm just gonna go ahead and pretend that pickling is not a thing you do with honey, because that
Honey,
makes me feel
ginger,
better
pickle
about the world.
So water, white wine, or champagne vinegar.
There is
Maple
vinegar, so there is
syrup.
vinegar.
So there is
There
vinegar.
vinegar.
Yeah, because you can't.
And
That
honey.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
but they didn't just like plop it in honey,
No.
because that's not that's not pickling.
So it's 1 cup of vinegar to 1 quart of water, a cup and a half of honey, a cup and a half of sugar.
You know what I really want to do? I really want to make some like jalapeno pickled pickles, like
I want to
some, like,
pickle
That
stuff.
sounds
spicy-
amazing.
spicy
You know what I
jalapeno
was-
pickles.
You know
Oh,
what I was making? You know what I
delicious.
was making recently? I
Mhm.
was practicing. I was trying to make hash browns, and it worked. And you get them all crispy.
My husband has had the hardest time. How did you do it?
They're so easy. I took okay, take a single potato. You peel the potato. You get your like cheese grater. You grate the potato.
you peel
you
the
turn-
potatoes.
Hmm?
You peel
Well,
the
I
potatoes.
mean, it saves me having to wash them.
That's fair.
You gotta turn the stove up to one of the like medium high because it needs to be hot enough to
Mhm.
crisp. You let it heat up, you add oil in, the oil heats up, then you toss the hash browns in, they start like sizzling and sizzling, and you have to be patient because you have to wait for them to crisp and get kind of golden. You can kind of see it on the sides. Then you need to flip them, but you got to be careful because they might stick to the bottom. What I didn't use a spatula. I used my bench scraper, which is thin metal, so I could just
Oh.
like get under them
Okay.
and nothing stuck, and it was so
You gotta have a
'Cause
nice
they
thin
stuck the-
spatula.
they stuck the first time and it made me sad. But the bench scraper solved it. You flip them, let them crisp again. You might need to flip them a couple more times if you're not terribly competent like me. And they're delicious. And it's so easy. Oh, you also salt them immediately afterwards.
'Kay.
While the oil is
I'll
oily.
try that.
Also, when you grate your potatoes, don't rinse them off because the starchy water
Oh.
helps.
Okay.
Anyways,
It is delightful. Crispy. They have to be crispy and don't make it too thick because then you get like the uncrispy potato in the middle of it that you don't want. You want
Okay.
crispiness all over because that's the best.
Oh, I love the crispy.
well, now that we've discussed the finer points of hash brown cooking, I guess we'll call it on Spice and Wolf. Lovely background anime with some good music.
I would like to recommend a manga this month. So, if you're drowning in isekai and you need a break from isekai, but you want the break from isekai
Don't
to
we
be
all?
more isekai,
Oof.
then I recommend The Suffering of Local Night Hans. Because it's kind of fun and pokes fun at some of the isekai tropes while being isekai.
That sounds about right. Okay,
Yes.
what's the show we're gonna watch next time? For next time,
That's a good question. We have a number of options.
I
We could
have-
watch.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Big Bad has a suggestion. Noah. So, Bad and I started a show the other week, and it was kind of interesting. We didn't get super far, but it was it's one word, but it's 2 words. It's Beast Stars. Beast Stars.
I think I've heard of it.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
So Beastars is an anime that you may have seen and been like, oh, it's fully CG. I won't watch this. Or you may have done what I did the first time, which has been like, watch the first like 30 seconds before the protagonist appears and go like, I'll check it later.
That's
It's
my
pretty
suggestion.
novel. It's fairly
How
novel.
many episodes
I
have
think
you
it's like
got?
13 in total. We've watched, I don't know.
Maybe like 6 or 8.
It's interesting.
So it looks
We
like
could also do ReZero.
that's true.
We could also do Assassination Classroom.
Zombieland Saga.
We could also do Zombieland Saga.
Same voice actor for Holo too. Is the main pink character. It makes me happy. I nerd out. Sam and I were nerding out so hard yesterday.
Are there
Yes.
zombies in Zombieland Saga?
Well, I mean,
I do need to ask, is this an anime that's purely getting by on the fact that all the characters are cute girls?
have you seen AKB 0048?
It's a good question.
It's like one of those singing girl pop star. They're trying to be pop stars.
You sent me this one before. I don't know. I don't think I actually. I think I may have seen a couple of episodes. I don't think I stuck with it.
Guy makes me
Maybe-
laugh so hard, especially in I don't know about the dub, but the sub was pretty freaking funny, cause he's like in the dub or in the sub. I mean, he only talks in English to the girls when he's like, "We are going to do this." Like, great.
That is something that is
That's-
funny to see in like in manga. You like they specifically like put marks to show when a word is in English. It's like
It's pretty good.
it's also every time it happens, it looks so ridiculous in the sentence.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, this is not.
Well, and he was
Sorry.
explaining baseball to them, and they can't ever go back to the people they loved or knew because technically they're zombies. But he puts makeup on them so they look like they're girls again,
Mhm.
and their dream is to become like these pop star girls.
Huh.
It's just kind of it's random. It's great.
Well, that sounds lovely. I will leave that decision up to both of you.
I
Going for
abstain.
Beastars. What was the other one you said after Beastars?
ReZero is still something that is noteworthy that I must continue to recommend. And I'm not saying that ReZero is good. I'm saying it has time travel and it's important to the isekai genre, which is an important genre because it's so-
Painful it is to die that many times. That's fucking brutal, yo.
Oh yeah, no.
Would
If I
you
get
wanna
to help,
die like that?
yes.
We
Like,
haven't.
do I get to time travel?
Have we watched ReZero?
But that would be fucking painful.
Yeah, but time travel. We've not watched it. We never watched it.
Wasn't?
No,
Never.
I don't think we watched it.
You'd remember it.
That's probably true.
Beetlejuice
Troa
is
says
the
we
character.
did not watch it. Yeah, Beetlejuice is scary.
And they mispronounce his
freaky.
name, which makes it infuriating.
Betelgeuse. Or
Betelgeuse.
Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse.
Betelgeuse.
That's what they call him.
It sounds like German.
Yeah.
That's how they pronounce it.
Well, that. Okay. What do you
Let's
guys
do
think?
ReZero.
I abstain.
Oh, now
You already voted for
abstain.
ReZero. You can't abstain.
No, I abstain. I just mentioned
It's ReZero. Helen
Yeah.
and Bad Strategy have voted. Done.
Cool.
All right. We'll be watching ReZero.
Troa is laughing his butt off right now.
And that's going to be on
June.
June
something.
6th. Oh, that's the day that I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that.
Okay.
do you wanna push it to a slightly different?
So that's an interesting question because for those of you who don't know, a close personal friend of mine is getting married on the 6th, and their wedding is on the 6th of June. There's a little thing going around the country right now. Not supposed to have big gatherings, something like that. I can't remember the details. So I don't know if that's going to happen.
Thing for June 11th too, and my birthday is June 17th.
Oh my gosh.
And then my son's birthday is June 20th, which is the summer solstice, which lands on a Saturday as well.
Nice.
But I don't think I think they postponed their weddings. Because I had one
Yeah.
at the end of May too. But
Yep.
they said they're doing it next year.
I think 6th should be fine. So we'll still plan on the 6th.
Okay. If something comes up, it's not a big deal. We can
Exactly.
reschedule.
Perfect. But alrighty, I guess we'll make that the plan. We'll be talking about ReZero on the 6th of June. Thanks everybody for coming and watching. I was just reading comments, that's all. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Adios.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
If I can find the off button. Hang on.